Good evening. Could we all please rise for the prayer? Dear God, as this session opens, we pray that your presence will be before us and everyone who serves in the decision-making process of our city. We pray for direction which will lead our city to be strong and unified. May we continue the legacy of our founders. May we be granted this day the wisdom to make decisions which will be good for the city, for the good of the city. We also pray for your special blessing on all those who are working to transform our city and make it a better place to work. Amen. Live and work. Please salute the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Clerk, please call the roll.
Counsel Kennedy.
Here.
Counsel Leahy.
Here.
Counsel Martin.
Here.
Counsel Mercia. Counsel Milanazzo.
Here.
Counsel Rourke.
Here.
Counsel Samaras.
Here.
Counsel Belanger.
Here.
Mayor Elliott.
Here.
9 present.
9 present. This is a special meeting of the City Council. Notice was posted. I'd like to read the notice. Special meeting. Notice is hereby given as required by Rule 6 of the City of Lowell City Council rules, that the Lowell City Council will hold a special meeting of the Lowell City Council in the council chambers on Monday, March 3rd at 2014 at 5 p.m. The purpose of this meeting for two purposes. One, discussion of selection/hiring process for the city manager and city auditor. 2, appointment of acting city auditor. So the first item, we start with the selection process of the city manager. Councilor Mercia.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I know that we're discussing the process and the procedure on to how to proceed, but as we proceed, I think it's very important that we have public participation. This process does not take away any duties given to us, but simply allows the public to weigh in on their thoughts and concerns. We're not relinquishing our obligation or our responsibilities, we're just including the public. So I would like to make that before we begin into a form of a motion to allow the public to weigh in and come up to the podium. Each would have like 5 minutes just to tell us if they were sitting in our seat, what they would be looking for. Any suggestion that I'd like to hear.
Okay. Motion by Councilor Mercia that there be a public, the public be allowed to participate at the during this process. Seconded by Councilor Belanger. Further discussion. So, Council, would we suggest at the beginning of the interview process?
Yes, like we do at budget time, Mr.
Right.
Mayor. You know, when we're formulating a budget, trying to put one,
Right.
vote on different things, public has a right to come and speak as a whole of the whole budget as what they would like to see added or whatever.
Okay, so at the opening, before the interviews, correct?
Right.
And then we'll proceed with the interviews, okay?
Sure.
Councilor Belanger, then Councilor Samaras.
Yes, to you, Mr. Mayor. I'm in agreement with Councilor Mercia that, I'm sure she, like myself and probably many of my colleagues, have received emails and calls how, we have a lot of citizens who care, and they're very concerned about their city right now and who the manager's going to be. So, although it comes down to this council, individually, we're going to vote who we feel is best for the city. But it's important, I think, we have at least one public hearing, let the neighborhood groups and the concerned citizens have some input on this or what they're looking for as city manager. So I think it's important we do it before we enter the interview process as well. So that's why I second the motion. So I think it's a good motion. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Councilor Samaras.
Yes, thank you. I also second that motion. I think it's a good motion. I've got a couple of ideas I'd like to just put on the floor. Is that okay at this particular
Absolutely,
point?
Council.
That matches what Councilor Mercier is stating. One of the things that they did at the school department when they were interviewing for superintendent, They had an opportunity for all candidates to meet with community people, neighborhood people, school people. And perhaps we could ask someone like the Lowell plant to give us some community leaders to meet with the candidates who we select prior to the interview. In other words, if they're being interviewed on Wednesday, they meet on Tuesday. And that business leader would take them to meet some of the other business leaders. Perhaps at nighttime, at 5 or 6 o'clock, we could allow neighborhood leaders to be in the chambers to meet with these candidates, to speak with them, and also an opportunity to speak with the media. And I think that would prepare them, they would be better prepared to meet with us and answer our questions. Also, in trying to give people in the community an opportunity to be part of the process, another thing I thought of would be that we would ask community leaders, and especially the neighborhood leaders, to submit questions to us. And as you know, many of the questions would be submitted, could be submitted. We might get 100, we may get 5, but the thing is, in general, I think it would come out that, say we got 50 questions, you could probably break it down to 5 basic questions that they would ask. And maybe we as councils could ask the candidates those questions, or you as the mayor representing the city could ask the neighborhood questions or the community questions. So it's just a process of what are some of the ways that we could allow our citizens some type of participation in this process. And I think this would help for clarification. I think this would help the candidates from outside the city. I think this would help the candidates from within the city to be better prepared to meet with us the next day. So those are just some suggestions.
Thank you, Councilor. Further discussion? Councilor Kennedy?
So this will be a public hearing. Would this be advertised like a public hearing?
I believe the interview processes are public meetings and have to be duly posted, correct?
I believe they are, yeah.
Right, but I understand that the interview process is public, but if we're going to invite the public to come and speak, then should it be advertised as a public hearing? In other words, how's everybody going to know, unless they're listening to us this evening, that they have an opportunity to do this?
Well, I think public hearings are public, and the public is invited to attend any and every meeting. If there's an issue of registering to speak, I'm sure we can suspend the rules, or we can just let anyone that wants to come down at the outset of the meeting, allowing the public speaking portion of it.
So the answer is it wouldn't be advertised.
It will be advertised. It has to be posted. You mean place a formal advertisement?
Yes.
Madam Solicitor, if people want to come and speak, do we have to incur the expense of a public
Well,
hearing?
If you're looking at it in terms of an actual public hearing, then the advertising requirement would attach. And as Councilor Kennedy was indicating, that's really what's going to trigger notice to the general public that this is an opportunity for them.
Is that your desire, Councilor Kennedy? Do you want to
Well,
place
I
for an
didn't make the
advertisement?
motion, nor did I second it. I was just asking the question of how it's going to be conveyed to the public that they have an opportunity to speak unless it's advertised as a public hearing.
Councilor Mercia?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to the city clerk, when we have a subcommittee meeting, Mr. Gary, do we put an ad in the paper letting people know that there's a finance subcommittee?
No, that's just posted in terms of the open meeting law, Counselor, 48 hours in advance.
Well, in this particular case, I think we should put an ad in the paper just to clear it for everybody and notify the public that we're having a public hearing for the purpose of, and have the public be aware of it so that they can legitimately come up here and know that they can speak. I think that's what we should do, and that's a good suggestion.
Councilor Milanazzo?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Are the resumes now available to the public?
No.
No.
Not until the council has selected the finalists.
Finalist, okay. I didn't think so, but I just, again, we're talking like, people are going to be able to come out.
Good.
Right.
It's a good thing to throw out.
Okay,
yeah.
okay.
So that people,
For either position, the manager and or the auditor?
that's correct. For
Correct.
all, yeah.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
You're welcome. Further discussion? Councilor Rourke?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Would it be an instance where we did have a singular meeting where the public could come and express their intentions of what they would like for a city manager. And as that meeting is over, we take in those concerns, those questions, and that goes along to the interview process?
Correct. I think what the concern is that we get very good and adequate notice through a newspaper advertisement that the public, this is a public hearing, public meeting, and that it's open to any and all people in the city when they want to come down and express their concerns, their interest, and then I believe the next step after the public discussion, we will move into the interview process. Is that what the intent that we're looking at? Not just a special hearing just for that purpose, but doesn't matter. Council Mercia?
Mr. Mayor, could we have a roll call on that motion?
Absolutely. Motion to have a,
Before
the roll call, Council Kennedy?
just a clarification. So just following up on the comments of Councilor Milonazo, then what seems to be appropriate is that the public hearing should be after the finalists have been selected, so that the public has an idea of what to focus on, right? Is that the case?
Correct.
And so that public hearing would be after that, after the 5 finalists have selected, but before the interviews take place.
Correct. If I could, just in the past, the process that I've been through a couple of times is councils have received all the resumes, and then we select 10, we can submit up to 10 names to the clerk. The clerk tallies those resumes, and the 5 individuals that got the highest number of selections or votes would be interviewed. So you can submit 10, who has the greatest number of votes, up to 5. I believe if there was a tie, did we interview 6?
Right.
I believe we did. So that was the process. So I believe once we submit the 5, we'd advertise the public hearing and begin the interview process. Council Martin?
My memory is we gave 5 names.
5, okay.
And then, but I don't know if we wanted where the cutoff should be, if it's the top 5, it's the people that got 5 votes.
Okay.
And I don't really have a preference either way, but I don't remember giving in 10 names. Maybe we could have, and I only gave 5, but the last time I'm pretty sure was 5. Yeah.
Okay. Maybe it was a prior time that the years are starting to roll together. So what is the wish of the body? The motion is to place an advertisement in the newspaper once we have established the finalist and have a public hearing process prior to the interview process, right?
Right.
Motion by Councilor Kennedy, second by Councilor Mercia. Or roll call? I'm sorry, Councilor Smash, did you want to speak on that motion?
Yes, I did. I mean, I need clarification. Are we talking about having the citizenry speak before the day we interview?
Correct.
I mean, conceivably, what happens if 50 people come to speak? I'm concerned about that process. And I thought when I suggested a couple of ideas, being new to this process, I thought it would be an open time for some discussion as to different ways we could try to do this. So, in other words, I have to make a motion on the other issues that I raised. So we're voting on this motion here to allow people to speak prior to our interviewing candidates.
I believe that was a wish of the body, yes, correct. That was the motion.
Okay.
Right. On the motion, Councilor Leahy?
Right, but not the same night as the interviews. So we would,
Whatever the wish of the body is,
Right,
it
I
was
think
my
what we were
understanding that
talking
we were
about-
gonna, it was my understanding that we were going to initiate the process, and before the process began, we would give the public an opportunity to speak, express their interests, express their concerns, and then following that public hearing process, we would begin the interviews. But it's up to the body.
because I'm just thinking, that might take the whole night, and then we don't want to start interviewing at 9 or 10 at night. So it might be prudent to do the selection of the top candidates, have the public notice, so we have the public's input, and to Councilor Samaras' suggestion, they would have time to maybe meet people and visit the city, and then whatever the following day or week, then do the interviews. I thought that's what we were voting on.
Council Belanger, then Council Kennedy.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I mean, I'm only one vote here on this table, but I'd like to see, this council narrow it down to 5 or 6 finalists, then have a public forum with the public, get the public in here. I don't think it's appropriate to have a candidate sitting while the public's chiming in at the same time. I don't think that's appropriate whatsoever. So I'd like to narrow it down, bring the public in for a forum, have their input before we interview and select a finalist. I think that's the best procedure. That's the way I'd like to go about it.
Mr. Mayor,
Council Kennedy?
2 things. The motion before us, I think, is Councilor Mercier's motion, seconded by Councilor Belanger. I didn't make a motion, I just asked for a clarification. And the second thing is, I guess what I expect is that when the public comes, they're just going to be telling the city council what the characteristics or what they see, who they think should be the city manager. But they're not going to be able to, they won't have interviewed the 5 candidates, and so they're not going to be able to say, listen, I think that Joe Smith's better than Bill Jones. They're not going to, it isn't going to be like that. They're just going to be able to tell us what they think we should be looking for, right? So I think that once we're down to the 5 finalists, if we then just set aside an evening for the public hearing, and then after the public hearing on a different night, we have the five candidates in, or however many candidates are scheduled for that evening, that seems to be, that makes sense to me.
Okay, sounds good. Council Mercier?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm remembering in 2006. In 2006, we had 36 applicants. Out of the 36, the city council perused and dissected and took in all these people. We narrowed it down to 5 people. I believe that the last, the 2 fifth positions had an equal number of votes, so we made an exception and allowed 6 people. We interviewed 3 people one night and 3 people on another night. But while we narrowed it down and we gave all our ideas, all our choices to the city clerk, who at the time was Rick Johnson, he took it all in and he tabulated it. And when he tabulated it, it came out just like this. Bernie Lynch had 8 votes. Frank Keefe had 8 votes. Diana Prudo-Broom had 7. Paul Cohen had 5. And Ed Kennedy had 4. And I think somebody else had 4, and we allowed that to happen if there was a tie. From that point on, there's 5, 6 people here. The public has a right to come on the night that the clerk lays it all out and tells us who those 5 people are. At that point, the people come to the podium and they say exactly, I hope you do this, or I want this. It isn't what we think. We're doing our obligation, but it's very wise to get input from everybody. And then from that point on, we look at whoever tabulated the highest amount, and we set up another time for interviews. We had 3 one time, and I think 3 another night. So I'm not expecting the public to come here and say what they want while the candidates are waiting in the cloakroom. They can do this on the night that the city clerk tells us who the 5 or 6 people are. And only if the 5th position and the 6th are tied with the same amount. Having said that, that would be time enough to be speaking on it.
Okay. Sounds like a plan. Is there a, so motion by Council Mercier, seconded by Council Belanger, that I think it was a public participation process, but as part of that, if there's no objection to the maker, that we include that be, an advertisement be placed in the newspaper. Should we need a time frame. So does next Monday, is that adequate time to allow members to get the names to the clerk and place an ad in the newspaper, notifying the public that there'll be a participation process next Monday, And at that time, we'll also have the candidates' names. Seems like there's enough time to do that. Council Mercia?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We have 29 names. We cannot divulge anybody's name here, although I will say that there's 3 names on this list that were 3 people in 2006. I just wanted to say that, and I'm not saying who it is, but I think that once that's established, each candidate will be given an opportunity to make an opening statement, not to exceed 3 minutes, or am I too ahead of it? So
Yeah, could we just take a roll call vote on that motion to establish, which will be next Monday? Is 5 o'clock okay for members to have that public hearing?
Mr. Mayor, I'm sorry, I won't be here. I will be out of the state on Monday. I don't want to hold this process up. I would love to be here, but time is of the essence, so I don't want to inconvenience my colleagues and the public, so. But
Okay.
just want to let you know I
We may
won't
have
be
some
here.
other. Councilor Martin?
Well, I think 5 o'clock is too early. If
Okay.
we're going to talk about public, people work, a lot of people work out of town.
Okay.
So I think a later hour. I don't care necessarily about the date as much, but I do think for something like this, it probably should be a little later.
All right.
I mean, we have
Time?
our public hearings at 7 o'clock now.
Right. But suggested time? Doesn't matter to me.
I mean, I would say 7 o'clock.
7 o'clock? Is there a time that members want to suggest other than Monday, or is Monday good?
So,
Council Martin or Council Kennedy?
I wouldn't mind moving it to a different night in order to accommodate Council Belanger. This is an important thing, and so rather than, it's not as important that we be fast as it is important that we do it right and that everybody participate. And so if there's a better night for Council Belanger, then I'd rather accommodate him and his schedule rather than have it Monday with 8 people.
Council Belanger? I'm sorry, Council Martin and then Council Belanger?
no, I don't have anything on that point.
Council Belanger?
I thank you, Councilor Kennedy. I want to thank him for his consideration. But I'm going to leave it up to my colleagues, Mr. Mayor. We need to get going here in this process, and I don't want to be the one to hold it up. I would love to be here. I think on this hearing, it's more or less for public input, more than council, quite frankly. And I think that's great. However, I'll leave it up to my colleagues. If they vote to go forward on Monday, then I have no problem with it.
Oh,
So just to let you know, the discussion here is that the solicitor has a concern with posting a public hearing, not a public meeting, a public hearing within less than 10 days, less than 7 days. Madam Solicitor?
Yeah, I mean, since there isn't thank you, since there isn't a requirement for a public hearing but the spirit is being modeled after, we're not necessarily going to be wedded to 7 days, but you'll need to have enough time so that the council can get the names to the city clerk, and then the clerk can take the names, advertise, and the public then has enough time to plan to attend. And so I would think for a public hearing, you would want at least an absolute minimum of 2 days, and more likely something in the neighborhood of 4 to 5 days of publication. The standard is generally 7 before you have a public hearing.
Council Rourke?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. With that information, I guess my next question would be through you to Council Belanger. When are you back?
I'm home Monday evening about 9, 10 p.m., so anytime after that, I'm at your disposal.
So maybe Wednesday or Thursday?
So,
Wednesday, 7 o'clock.
so can we do, is Wednesday a better day?
Yes, for sure.
Wednesday for members? Guess the only concern is use of this. Is there anything in here, do we know, Mr. Clerk, on Wednesday evening?
School committee day for you, the 12th?
School committee is Wednesday, so the following week we should be clear.
So it would be the 12th.
12th,
So March 12th, Wednesday, 7 o'clock.
right? Okay. Further discussion? We all in agreement? Council Rourke?
Mr. Mayor, my question would be, when do does the clerk want the names?
Well, why don't we get through this roll call, and then we'll discuss, but I believe the intent was to have the names to the clerk by Friday, so he will have the weekend to tally and prepare. I don't think it's as much the concern of getting the names as it is getting the advertisement in the newspaper, correct, Madam Solicitor? So there'll be adequate publication notice.
Right, unless part of that publication process is to let the public know who the candidates are and give them an opportunity to take a look at their backgrounds, and that may have an impact on what the questions are, but you could go either way, obviously.
I'm not going to speak for the body, but I think we're just concerned about getting input on, in general, about qualifications, their concerns, their interest. But nevertheless, as long as we get the public hearing notice in the paper. Council Belanger?
Yeah, I just had a concern the way this way is going. It seems to be heading now that, well, the public, we want to hear what they're looking for in a manager. I mean, we don't want to hear my selection's so-and-so.
Correct.
That's the objective here, correct?
Is that the wish of the body?
Yes.
Yeah,
Okay, Council Martin?
yeah, I mean, I think it's important, I think what Councilor Mercia brought up is to solicit input from the public about what the qualities are in the next city manager. If we're gonna I don't think we should be letting people come down and cheering on their candidate.
Right.
You know, I think that's fraught with peril. I think, you could have plants, people undermining different candidacies. I just think, and that's never really been done, at least in my time here. So I support, the motions that have been made and seconded. To me, when the names get tallied and released is a separate discussion.
Right,
Agreed.
right.
Further discussion? Roll call. Correct, for Wednesday, March 12th, 7 PM.
Council Kennedy.
Yes.
Council Lady.
Yes. Yes.
Council Mercia.
Yes.
Council Milonazo.
Yes.
Council Rourke.
Yes.
Council Samaras.
Yes.
Council Belanger.
Yes.
Mayor Elliott.
Yes.
9 yeas.
9 yeas, motion carries. So the next item would be submission of names and just setting that criteria. Do we want to, it's been suggested that we submit 5 names to the clerk. Council Mercy, then Council Rourke.
And thank you, Mr. Mayor. And then after that takes place and we have that established, we could set 2 days up for interviews. Each candidate will be given an opportunity to make an opening statement not to exceed 3 minutes, after which each city councilor will have the opportunity to interview each candidate for a period not to exceed 5 minutes. At the conclusion of each, the candidate will have an opportunity to make a closing statement not to exceed 3 minutes.
Great. So at next Monday's meeting, should we set up interview times at that meeting after the public participation process? Council Kennedy, then Council Martin.
Mr. Mayor, I don't know how you can set up interview times without speaking to the candidates.
Next Monday, Council Kennedy. I didn't say tonight.
No, I understand that.
Well, we have to set up times amongst this body in order for us to know when we're all available, and then we're going to go to candidates and say, can you make these
Okay.
nights?
Can I just ask, are we to submit 5 names or 10 names, or what amount of names?
The suggestion was 5, but I think we're open to that.
And are the names, are they weighted? In other words, let's say that if I'm going to put 5 candidates down, there may be 1 or 2 candidates that I feel very strongly about, and maybe the 5th candidate I don't feel as strong about, and so why should the 5th candidate have as much weight as the first 2?
Past practice has been one candidate, 1 vote. Council Mercy, then Council Belanger.
There's 9 of us here. If 4 of us choose a particular candidate, then this person has four votes. If we are strongly in support of a particular candidate and he has 8, well, most likely this person would get it, whether I like him better than the rest or what. This person has 8 votes. How do you not understand that?
So what do we, why don't we just put this in, Council Martin, do we want to do one person, one vote, or?
Well,
or otherwise?
I think so. I mean, to respond to Councilor Kennedy, I guess you're weighting it somehow like proportional
Voting.
elections, right, for city council. And I mean, that's maybe a worthy thing, but I know, at least in my time here, we haven't done that. And I think it hasn't really had, I think if you look at the history, we've seemed to have gotten the quality candidates in the process that we have. So, you know, maybe we end up interviewing people near the end that might not have been the strongest, but I think even that is not really a waste of time. I think everybody, at least that's interviewed for a city manager position when I've been here, has had some interesting ideas to offer, even if they weren't selected for the job. So if the risk is we're going to be a little bit over-inclusive, I don't see that really as a problem. So,
Councilor Malinowski, then Councilor Samaras.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I remember in 2006, I'm looking at the file today, I submitted 4 names in alphabetical order, and that's what my letter said to the clerk at the time, just 4 names in alphabetical order. So again, I don't know if my colleagues think that's an appropriate way to do it, but there was no weighted or anything like that, because we hadn't gone through the interview process yet, so.
Right.
Thank you.
Councilor Samaras?
And I think by keeping it to 5 names, the process can work. If you go to 10 names, then it becomes quite difficult, and then you're bringing in literally almost everybody. So I think 5, or even limit it to 3, but 5 I think is a good number for the number of applicants that we have. I think that would allow the process to work.
It's just a question.
Councilor Belanger?
Just a question. I just wanted to know how it was going to be done, that's all.
Councilor Belanger?
Yes, through you, Mr. Mayor. This is a time where, you know, I'm leaning heavily on my colleagues, on their inputs, those who have been here for a number of years and have the experience. But there are a few here that brought some great ideas. Councilor Kennedy brought a certain dimension to it about weighted candidates, but I don't necessarily agree with it, but I think it's, you know, it could be, it's a good option to bring to the table. But what I'd like to do is basically what's Councilor Martin and Councilor Mercy have their recollection is that, you know, we narrow it down to up to 5 candidates, and we interview the top 5. And in a series of two or three sessions, we do the interviews, and then ultimately are finalists. So I'd like to make this as simple and swift as possible. Thank you.
Councilor Rourke?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I'd like to make a motion to submit 5 names to the city clerk by close of business on March 7th.
Motion by Councilor Rourke, seconded by Councilor Malinowski, that members of the council submit 5 names to the city clerk by this Friday, no later than 5 p.m. Roll call.
well, could I, on
Councilor
the
Martin?
motion, and then the clerk tabulate,
Right.
right, and give us the names of what? The top 5 or the top people who got 5 votes? I don't know.
No, the top
You know,
five.
I have no issue with Councilor Rourke's motion, but I think then, what's the clerk do with it?
How many does the council want to interview? 5?
5.
5.
Five.
5 in
Mr. Mayor,
ties?
with the
5
exception.
in ties, right.
Right, with the exception if the 5th and 6th have the same amount.
Tied.
Right.
Okay. So motion is for names, candidates, councilors to submit candidate names, 5 names to the clerk by 5 p.m. Friday, and that he tabulate the top 5 candidates and communicate that to the members of the council. Roll call.
Yes.
Council Leahy.
Yes.
Council Martin.
Yes.
Council Mercia.
Yes.
Counsel Milonazo.
Yes.
Counsel Rourke.
Yes.
Counsel Samaras.
Yes.
Counsel Belanger.
Yes.
Mayor Elliott.
Yes,
That's 9.
9 yeas, motion carries. Counsel Rourke?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. With regards to the auditor, I believe we got 10 applications. Should we do top 3 for the same time period?
Okay, so moving on to the audit, no further discussion on the city manager, right?
Well, I
Okay.
did.
Okay,
Councilor Mercia started to talk about the interview process with the opening statement and all that, and I actually think the 3 minutes is a little quick. I almost think we should give the candidate, however much time they want for an opening. And I think that I have no issue with the 5 minutes per counselor, but the history is any guide. What you'll find is, there aren't a whole lot of different questions. So the counselors that ask questions first will take the full 5 minutes, and by the time you get to the 8th counselor, probably that person's questions have mostly been asked and answered. So even though everyone has 5 minutes, I think it's unlikely that everyone will use the 5 minutes. But I do think, if candidates have given this some thought and they want to make a presentation to the council, an opening of 3 minutes might be a little restrictive.
okay. While we're on ground rules, we did receive a communication from the city solicitor regarding, we just got this evening that we want to take a look at and maybe discuss at the next meeting as well. Do we want to set the criteria at the next meeting, Council Martin, Council Mercia, on time frame, or we just want to be a little flexible with that?
I don't think it needs to be decided tonight. People want to give it some thought.
Right. Okay. Council Samaras?
Sorry, just another question. During the time of asking questions, is there an intention, or has it been done in the past where the same questions have been asked of each candidate, or is it different questions? I mean, should we even think of an idea of all of us coming in with one certain question or a certain area, so we don't, and say, run over each other?
Well, I think that was Council Martin's point, having gone through this a couple of times. Depending upon the line of questioning, it does go alphabetical, and then the next line of questioning to the next candidate moves to the next member. So sometimes if you're 7th, 8th, or 9th, the question that you may have wanted to ask was already answered. In fact, more often than not, it has. So I think that's where questions from the public that could be submitted to, I guess it could be submitted to any member of the council or to the clerk as well, or to my office, would be helpful, and we'd be happy to provide any questions that members of the public may have. We can distribute those questions beforehand so they could possibly be asked.
Well, that was, I mean, should I make that in the form of a motion? I mean, part of my suggestion was that we allow the public to set up some questions that should be asked. And if it came through the mayor's office as the clearinghouse, I think this would offer an excellent opportunity to hear what the community really is concerned about.
I'm happy to facilitate that, that process. So motion by Council Samaras, second by Council Rourke, to have the mayor's office receive and compile any questions from the public, and we'll bring those questions forward before the interview process, or even beforehand, so councilors can get an idea of what those questions are from the public. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye, and the opposed, motion carries. Further discussion on the city manager selection process? Moving on to the city auditor process. Council Rourke?
Mr. Mayor, thank you. Once again, I think we received 10 applications for the audit position. Follow a similar trail as the city manager. We submit 3 names to the clerk by close of business on Friday.
Okay, motion by Councilor Rourke, seconded by Councilor Mercia, to submit 3 names to the city auditor, city clerk, by this Friday at 5 p.m., and that the auditor will compile the top 3 candidates and notify the city council of the top candidates to be selected. Roll call.
Could I just make a...
Council Leahy?
Would we object if we just had 4, even it out 2 and 2? Because there's a few in here I'd like to talk to. Would there be objection? Do we have to change.
To the maker of the motion, any objection to submitting 4 names if necessary, and if, that's fine with me. Okay, so, we won't withdraw the motion, we'll just, I guess, amend the motion to make it the number of 4. Roll call.
Counsel Kennedy.
Yes.
Counsel Leahy.
Yes.
Counsel Martin.
Yes.
Counsel Mercia.
Yes.
Counsel Milonazo.
Yes.
Counsel Rourke.
Yes.
Counsel Samaras.
Yes.
Counsel Belanger.
Yes.
Mayor Elliott.
Yes.
9 yeas.
Okay, just in terms of timing on the auditor as well, should we have a discussion at the next meeting, which will be next, well, I guess would be Wednesday, the next time the council gets together? That is specifically for the city, a public hearing for the city manager. What about the process for the city auditor to set up interviews? What is the wish of the body? Council Martin?
I would suggest we at least, if we're having this public input night, that it apply to the auditor too. If people want to weigh in on that, they should be able to. I suspect there'll be a lot less interest in that than there is in the manager's job. But yeah, maybe at the conclusion of that meeting, we come prepared with dates, and so that we can set a few dates. And I think that at least in the past, for the city manager position, it's been at least 2 dates. And so that we have to advertise for meetings, and then the clerk contacts the candidates and see where they fit in, where their schedules allow. So I think if we came to the meeting on the 12th with some dates in mind that councilors were able to schedule, then we can decide that night.
Council Kennedy, then Council Belanger. Council Belanger.
Mr. Mayor, through you, did we determine how many applicants for the auditor we're going to be interviewing?
We initially said 3, but
So
Councilor
we're submitting,
Leahy.
yeah, I understand we're submitting 4 names, so we're going to interview all 4 finalists for the auditors. Okay.
Any further discussion on that motion? So the motion should also include that there'll be a public discussion, public hearing on the position of city auditor on the 12th of March. Further discussion, roll call.
Counsel Kennedy.
Yes.
Counsel Leahy.
Yes.
Counsel Martin.
Yes.
Counsel Mercia.
Yes.
Counsel Milonazo.
Yes.
Counsel Rourke.
Yes.
Counsel Samaras.
Yes.
Counsel Belanger.
Yes.
Mayor Elliott.
Yes.
9 yeas.
9 yeas, thank you. Next item on the agenda is the appointment of an acting city auditor. Discussion, Madam Solicitor, did you have anything on the appointment of the city auditor? We had asked you last week, just for an opinion. Are we all set to go?
As I indicated, I think at the offline with the city clerk last week, that the statute allows members of the auditor's office and another auditor to, that they may perform the duties, and if there is no remaining auditor, then the council would then need to appoint. I think that the safest route is to go with an official appointment, given the function of the auditor and what the auditor's duties are.
Okay,
Right.
thank you. Council Mercer?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I make a motion that we appoint the second in command in the auditor's office to be the acting city auditor, and that would be Karen O'Byrne.
Motion by Council Mercia, second by Council Rourke. All those in favor, roll call.
Counsel Kennedy.
Yes.
Counsel Leahy.
Yes.
Counsel Martin.
Yes.
Counsel Mercia.
Yes.
Counsel Milonazo.
Yes.
Counsel Rourke.
Yes.
Counsel Samaras.
Yes.
Counsel Belanger.
Yes.
Mayor Elliott.
Yes.
9 yeas.
9 yeas, motion carries. Having no further items or agenda items under this special meeting, entertain a motion to adjourn by Council Rourke, seconded by Council Milonazo. All those in favor signify by saying aye. In the opposed, motion carries. There is also a finance subcommittee meeting that was posted for 5:30. We're running behind a little bit. So I think if there's no objection, we could just hold the finance subcommittee meeting in this format, if there's no objection. Okay.
Clerk for it. Want Mary to clerk for it.
So we are, because we're discussing the salaries of the soon-to-be acting city clerk to be city manager, we have Mary Shanahan that's going to come and take the minutes. So we can just switch up, and then we'll proceed with the finance subcommittee to discuss the salary structure of both the acting city manager, acting city clerk, and acting city auditor.
Your Honor?
Council Leahy?
Yeah. Could I just ask, could your office or the clerk's office just, for the prior meeting, could you just send us out an email with all the dates again, so we'll have it in our email, and then we'll keep track of the dates that we just discussed?
Right. The only date that we will be meeting is next Wednesday. And then from next Wednesday, we'll be proceeding with setting up interview dates.
All right. When's the Monday meeting?
No, there is no
was
Monday.
Okay, all right.
Council Belanger,
Thank you.
right. It'll get confusing after the next Wednesday when we set up interviews. Okay, so the next posted meeting was a meeting of the Finance Subcommittee. And that meeting is posted as a result of a motion by Councilor Kennedy to have a discussion regarding salaries of those that are appointed to acting positions. Mary, we'd like to welcome you. Could the clerk please call the roll?
Mayor Elliott,
Here.
Councilor Kennedy,
Yeah.
Councilor Martin,
Here.
3 present.
3 present. So as discussed, there is the motion by Council Kennedy. Did you want to speak on your motion, Council Kennedy, as a member of the subcommittee?
Mr. Mayor, I would move that the acting salary for the salary for the acting city manager be set at the starting salary for the city manager right now, and that the salary for the acting city clerk be set at the beginning salary for the city clerk, and that the salary for the acting city auditor be set at the beginning salary for the first step for the city auditor.
Okay. Motion by Council Kennedy that the salary for those 3 positions mentioned be set at the starting salary as currently posted. Second by Councilor Martin. Discussion on that? Councilor Leahy?
Thank you. Could we just hear from Mrs. Callery on that? It's a good suggestion. I'm just wondering, on the assistants moving up, I did want to hear the suggestion from Human Resource. It might be, because they're union and non-union, it might be easy to work within grids. So maybe we could hear from her first before we...
Okay, Madam Solicitor and/or the Director of Human Resources, Ms. Gallery.
The starting salaries, there's a little bit of discrepancies there. The city manager's present salary is $180,895. So the starting salary for him is $145,000. Just to clarify the numbers, the assistant city clerk's salary is $68,396.64. So the starting salary on that is $72,364.56. And then if you come down to the assistant city auditor, there's a kind of a bigger gap there, which the Cheryl Wright's salary is $100,051.64. The assistant is $65,791.44. That's our starting salary is $85,180.68. So there's quite a difference there. And all the salaries, other than the city managers, is on a tier system. Now, I think a better way to do it is maybe across the board. I mean, other than the city manager's salary, which is big shoes to fill, right, Mike? Then the assistant city clerk and the assistant acting city auditor. Just an example, if we wanted to do 10,000 extra across the board, and it's certainly up to the city council, then I would place them, the acting city clerk from 68 to 78. I would find a tier system, we have 8 tier systems, and there's 7 steps to each tier system. So I would fit them in somewhere along the line. Of course, for the acting city clerk, there is a $78,391.56 that she could go to. And the same for the acting city auditor. I could find a tier system that has a $75,000. And then, of course, if you wanted to leave the city manager at the $145,000, I think that would be a good choice.
What is the wish of the body? Discussion?
That sounds right to me.
Motion by Council Mercia to accept the recommendation of the Human Resources Director.
But I'm not on the subcommittee. I
Oh,
can't
I'm
make
sorry,
a
that's
vote.
right, I forget we're in subcommittee. Council Kennedy, Council Martin. I think the suggestion is to move her up one tier so there's parity. Council, Ms. Gallery?
For the acting city auditor, you're looking at almost $20,000 versus the acting city clerk's position, which would go from 68 to 72.
That answer your question, Council Kennedy?
Well, I think in all fairness, but that's certainly up to you. The assistant city clerk's going from 68 to 72, which is roughly a $4,000 increase. And then you have almost a $20,000 increase for the acting city auditor.
Council Kennedy? Yep. So there was a motion on the floor. You're going to withdraw the first motion, right? No objection, motion withdrawn. Council Kennedy on the motion.
Second.
Second by Council Martin. Council Kennedy on the motion? Good. Council Martin on the motion?
Yeah, let me just, I mean, it's not $20,000, though. We're talking about the annualized amount.
Right.
Right, so we're talking probably about a period of 4 to 6 weeks, when in each of these departments, they're a person down for sure. And, so they're doing kind of their job, trying to keep the office running, kind of do the main person's job. So 20,000 annualized over this period of time is really not, to me, all that significant an amount. So I think it's fair. I can see your point about going 10, but it's not really 10. It's,
Right. I was
1/12 of 10.
Trying, the 4,000 and the 20,000
Right.
gap there, that's
Yeah.
all.
So that's my rationale for seconding.
Right. I think that's important to note that the salary may be increasing, but it's just for a short period of time. So that weekly amount it's going to be a lot more work, and we appreciate it. So further discussion from members of the subcommittee on this? Roll call.
Mayor Elliott?
Yes.
Counselor Kennedy?
Yes.
Counselor Martin?
Yes.
3 yeas, motion approved.
Motion approved. So we'll bring that recommendation to the full city council tomorrow night.
Move we adjourn.
Motion to adjourn by Council Kennedy, seconded by Councilor Martin. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Meeting is adjourned. Have a good evening.